What's up, you hosers? This is the Unlucky Puckheads podcast Offseason. This is an episode type where we take a look at anything and everything not related to hockey. Just anything we think of when we have words on. I am joined, as I always am, by my illustrious brother and partner in crime, CK. What's up?
How's it going?
Oh, it's alright. I think it's pretty well known at this point that the video game Wildstar, the massively multiplayer online game that had us all so excited a couple years ago, is going into its final era. It is shutting down, I believe, in November. And this kind of prompted me to talk with you a little bit and to kind of ruminate on it myself on what these games mean to people, because obviously there's a huge outpouring of support from the Wildstar community um, to the game they loved, and it's incredible to see just how connected people are to these types of games. So I thought, why don't we just go over these a little bit? And I'm actually going to let you start because you have a really interesting story with MMOs. And if you could tell it in short, just your experience with the community, with how you got into MMOs in general, and we'll go from there.
Well, sure. First I want to be clear as to which part of the story are you talking about? Are you talking about way back with our uncle? Or are you talking about Ultimo? Or are you talking about WoW? Or where do you want me to start? Because it's a long tail.
Yeah, it is. It is a very long tail, but I think what we're mainly going to discuss in this episode is basically just the community surrounding them.
Sure.
And I think for you, that was pretty much the strongest in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a couple of games we played, and I know that you obviously played a little bit of WoW and Star Wars, of course, online, and I played some others. But of course, Warcraft was it wasn't the first, but definitely was the most impactful, especially when it comes to came to like that social togetherness. It being a true MMO RPG where there was very strong interaction with other people, and your basically your success in game and advancement in the raids and everything was dependent on other people. And it was very, very interesting how the formations of guilds and in-game groups became a real turning point. It's basically almost like a form of social media in itself, where you could find like-minded people or not like-minded people, but just the way that everyone from different walks of life, different places in the world, could get onto a game, and their political differences, their personal differences could amazingly be set aside in order to find success in a raid against a boss, a digital enemy in a digital world that basically didn't really mean anything at all. And it's been very fascinating to me. I've written a couple of college papers on it, just how the social factory in MMORPGs can almost erase, whether it happens. What's really funny though is it can erase racism, it can erase ethnocentrism temporarily, but only within your guild.
Right?
If there's somebody in a different guild, then you can feel free to rip on them. But if it's in your group, your personal circle, because you don't see that person as someone from South Korea, or you don't see that person from someone from Russia or from South America or whatever, you see them as a dwarf or an elf or whatever they're playing. They are the representation of their character, and the success in the game is based on who they are in game. And so there's a little bit of yourself in there, there's a little bit of your character in there, you kind of become that tune. And it just is so interesting. That basically that group aspect, the social aspect of it, bled into other popular MMOs that came out after Warcraft. And we played, of course, there was the Star Wars Online game, which I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, the Old Republic, yep.
Yep, Old Republic. Then we had there was the Aeon, which I also played quite extensively. Almost more of like a PvP build sort of game, but it was also really great. And Wildstar came along, and I adored Wildstar. I thought that when it came to just like the worlds themselves and the storyline of it and the character development, the trade system, I thought it was really groundbreaking, and it had to be. You knew it was because Blizzard stole ideas from them, as they always do. But I mean, Carbine really, really, really built a fantastic game. And knowing that it is shutting down, I mean, I haven't played it in years. Now I feel guilty that I haven't played it in years, because if you were to set, WoW and Star Wars and Wildstar and say you can only play one, I almost I think I might actually choose Wildstar, just because of the type of game it was. It was more, I don't know, like just the frontier feel to it. It was very, very unique.
And it was very hard.
It was very hard. Well, that's kind of like, I think that's what the turnoff was. And
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
probably get into that a little bit too, of why, why maybe it didn't succeed.
But you mentioned earlier about the social aspects of the game and how you can kind of live through your character. You don't have to be you. And I just want to point out how much that kind of viewpoint affected me, because I didn't start with World of Warcraft. I started with Star Wars: The Old Republic. I was a pre-launch player. We had that pre-launch guild True Sith, which went for about what, like 3-4 months before it kind of died off. And
Yeah, something like that.
at that point, I joined a raiding guild called Wretched Hive, and before I was in Wretched Hive, and you can attest to this, I was pretty, like, really socially awkward. I didn't really know how to talk to people. I had just no social context. I mean,
I'm sorry.
I will fully admit that I still am socially awkward, but at the same time,
Perfect for a podcaster.
yeah, right. But at the same time, I was worse back then. I couldn't hold conversations with people without freaking out with anxiety. But being able to not be me and to come in as Caton Greyshade, Imperial Agent Healer, and kind of build a persona from that bled into my real life. That's the reason that I can communicate so well nowadays. That's the reason that I can sit here on this podcast and talk hockey or talk video games. I was deeply, deeply and profoundly affected by my experiences in that game. It helped me grow tremendously as a person, because as you know, we lived in nowhere, Pennsylvania. There wasn't a lot of people my age around. There wasn't a lot of people who shared my interests.
No. Nowhere Pennsylvania had a higher population.
But it's just being exposed to so many different people from so many different places, and hearing all the different stories and taking cues from how they handled themselves, and taking advice from them. Weirdly enough, soliciting advice from strangers on the internet is not something I'd recommend, but it worked for me. But it just had a deeply profound impact on me. And, tying this back to Wildstar, like, I really empathize with the people who stuck with that game for a while, and I still know a couple who left SOTOR to go play that game. And, I would be devastated, even though I don't play Star Wars anymore. I would be devastated to see it shut down. And, it's just such a part of my being. And, I really empathize with, the Wildstar players on that. And I've said a little bit about the community that I joined. I want to hear a little bit about, Punt the Gnome, about your guilds.
Well, I mean, that's part of, like, I'll call it online drama or whatever. But yeah, we started out. I did start playing off in vanilla, just like the very end of vanilla, the last few months of it, before the Burning Crusade launched for World of Warcraft, and we started off with a guild, just like it was a vanilla raiding guild. I couldn't even remember what the name of it was anymore. It's been too long ago. I mean, it's literally been 14 years ago, but. Then we broke away from that when Burning Crusade launched, and we formed our own guild, Shenanigans. And so we were on the Thrall server, and basically we were a group of Alliance morons on the server named after the Horde War Chief, which we found out later probably was a really bad idea. But the friendships that formed from that, we met a few other players that we still play with today, years and years and years and years later. We all have kids now. It's like we're all old people nowadays, but just the social aspect of that was incredible. After Shenanigans, yeah, we moved to a different realm because we got sick of dealing with the Horde all the time, and we formed a guild called Punt the Gnome. And so we had all of our friends were in Punt the Gnome. We really reached out, and we had a very successful raiding guild. And then just like in real life, things happen in-game too, to your in-game characters. And it's interesting because, in these MMORPGs, you have a guild leader and then often a board of officers. And the real-life impacts of what can happen in-game can be devastating to be honest. I mean, for me, it was my best friend lived with us for about 5 years, and he was there to see my first two kids born, and we were best friends. We were raiding together. He was in Shenanigans. He was in Punt the Gnome. And then things started not to go so great because we had a group of people that really wanted to raid and really were interested in that. And we had a group of people that just wanted to have fun. We were playing $15 a month to have fun in a game, not to work. And sometimes raiding, especially when you're not successful, starts to feel like work, and it's not fun anymore. And the drama starts to fly, and people start pointing fingers because your damage per second wasn't high enough, or you don't heal me, and things just started to crack at the seams. But everything was okay, and we were dealing with it. At least I thought so. And then one morning, I woke up and I found out that basically my best friend and then some of the people that were my friends for 7-8 years at this point in time, they literally just left our guild, kind of left our guild in shambles, formed their own guild. And it's weird to say. It almost sounds like uber nerdish, I don't know. But to say of the deep psychological scars that just forming a different guild in a video game causes, I mean, it has the same emotional ramifications of someone stabbing in the back in real life. And my best friend moved, one of the people that left the guild then, my best friend ended up moving out of my house and moving to Michigan and marrying her. And it was crushing. It was emotionally awful. Like, I have problems trusting anyone anymore to get that close. And like it happening in game, and like this is stuff that I don't know, people looking at it from the outside are like, really, in a game, and this is what your response is, this is what you're complaining about. And it's hard to explain to them. It's like, yes, but yeah, my character isn't me, but he is. The guild isn't like a real life anything, but it is. It's hard.
Right.
That social grouping is so difficult to explain to people that don't get it.
And that's the way I try to explain to people, and I say, even though it's not in person, you're still spending hours with these people every night. Like you're hanging out with them, you're talking to them, and the way I relate it to people is I just say, if you have a friend who lives in another state, and maybe you were friends as a kid and they moved away, but you talk to them on the phone constantly. Are they any less your friend than somebody who lives right next to you? They're not, because you still spend a ton of time with them. You talk to them. You help them. In a lot of cases, you help them through rough stuff. I've been helped through some rough life stuff, and I've helped people through rough life stuff.
We're all there for each other.
Yeah,
absolutely right.
And it is a deeply personal connection, because even though maybe they're not right there, they kind of are right there. I would point to, I was having a conversation. This is after Star Wars kind of went to crap, and we started playing WoW. And my one friend, we were discussing a book we're writing, and literally we took our characters and we sat down in the bar in Dalaran and just talked to each other in the game there. And to me, he was sitting right there. He was sitting right in front of me, and that's how my brain kind of dealt with that. Is I wasn't talking to my computer screen. I was talking to him. He was sitting right there.
And you were.
Yeah.
It's not like, yeah, sure, the picture you're looking at was just a digital representation of the tune he chose to use at that given time, but it was him. That portal was to him as a person, a real-life person somewhere in the world. So it's like, we're not just playing with NPCs. We're playing with real human people that can communicate and have feelings, and it's really interesting, just that, that social aspect of it. And you're absolutely right.
And just to kind of tie it around back to Wildstar again, it's just, we're about to see a lot of people have, kind of the similar experiences that we did after either the game went to crap or the guilds went to crap. There's a lot of people who are going to be having that experience probably for the first time. And, I kind of wanted to make this because, I really, I empathize with them. I do. Yeah,
and I tell you, there's a gaming world out there, MMOs, and we'll be happy to help out anyone that's, that's losing that chunk of life, if they're in Wildstar. But, Talking about Wildstar, I did want to touch a little bit about why I think it might not have been as successful, and because the game engine was great. I mean, the crafting system, like I said, was fantastic. The farming system was very felt familiar but was fresh at the same time. The character design I thought was really imaginative.
Yeah, it was.
But once you hit max level, and then you were expected to run these dungeons, and in order to advance, because it's not just all farming people, not everybody's into that, and it's not just PvP. Most people enjoy content of some sort, end game content where you can improve your character somehow, whether it's gear or whether it's stat boosts or whatever it is in the particular game you're playing. There's always some sort of end game raids, and in Wildstar, especially as a healer, it was stupendously difficult, because instead of single targeting with items or technology or spells or whatever it was in the particular game, Wildstar had like AoE effects on for your character. So you could heal, but you do like a heal and it'd be like a 20-meter circle underneath you.
Yeah, it was like everything,
like literally like a 3-foot wide cone in front of your character. And if they weren't in that cone when it went off, then tough luck. And when you're running around in a raid, trying to heal somebody, a tank who's running around like an idiot, and you have a 3-foot wide cone that you have to hit them with, good luck.
It's like if every heal was the Druid's heal circle from World of Warcraft. That's basically how it worked. And I remember it was awful for me, too, because I tried to play the Gunslinger healer. I forget what it was actually called at this point. It's been like 4 years. But, all the heals were about, 3 blocks long, and they would go for pretty much the entire, play area out in front of me. But it was so short, and the tank would be moving around constantly, so there's just no way I could keep him in that.
Yeah, exactly. As a healing tech, I had that one, frontal cone heal, but they were... Number one, it didn't go very far. It only went maybe 20 yards. And what would happen is a lot of these endgame bosses had these nasty AoEs of their own. So in order for me to get close enough to the tank to heal them, I would die, because it's I couldn't get that close and get a heal off without getting hit with something nasty. And it didn't matter what it was. Yeah, that was so difficult and got so frustrating that's why I left Wildstar. Is that I liked running dungeons with people. I liked doing, these harder missions with 5-6 people, or it was 4. I think it was 4 in Wildstar, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Whoever it was, but it's I liked doing that, but it got to the point where no matter how geared I was, I never could master that AoE stuff. It made me too frustrated. And me playing games. When I get frustrated, as in unreasonably frustrated, I'm done, because I'm not having fun anymore. Got to the point years ago where I didn't run raids in Star Wars, and I didn't run raids in any game, because end game stuff, I wasn't frustrated yet, but other people were getting frustrated, and I hate in-game drama, and because of what happened and some other things. And so I don't do that stuff anymore. I don't put that type of time investment in. I do what I like to do. In any game that I play, I'm like a millionaire, because I farm like crazy, and that's what I like doing. And that's another facet of it, too. These games allow you to play the way you want. There was a discussion just last night in a chat about, some people were saying that, this game is just a PvP game, or this game is just a farming game, or this game is just a content game. But really, a good MMORPG is all three, and you can play it the way you want, and you can experience the game the way you want. And I think that Wildstar was a little too focused on content and rating, and they didn't really put enough in the other directions. I think that might be one of the reasons why it didn't work out so well.
I had this conversation generally with my one friend on Discord last night, and I want to get your opinion on it, because I feel like with Wildstar, the world and the art design and the crafting in the base game was all fantastic. It looked amazing. Player housing.
Better than WoW.
Yeah. Player housing. It started with a good economy, great looking gear, a bunch of cosmetics. I think their main problem was that they tried to go too much for that like WoW type of thing, where I think if they would have gone a little bit more towards the Star Wars Galaxies side of thing, where it's more about world building and it's more about creating your legend within that world and creating your house and your area and your character and really customizing everything and not been so hardcore towards the rating, so hardcore towards group content, I think it might have worked out a little bit better to just allow people, like you said, to play the game the way they want.
Yeah, that's a really good illustration because I actually forgot about that game, Galaxies. That's a good correlation. You're right. If they would have went that direction, it probably would still be maybe not massively successful, but they'd probably still be able to self-maintain. But Galaxies made me angry anyway because I was a Jedi for a very, very short period of time, and then I spent forever becoming a Jedi, and then when I finally did, then they put that patch in where you could become a Jedi in like a week, and that made me so mad that was it. That was the end of that game.
Oh, that's a huge conversation I could have. But
yeah, let's not do that.
We don't have enough time right now.
But kind of just to sort of start to wrap this up. R.I.P. Wildstar. It is a shame. It was a great game. By far, I think it's a better game than a lot of choices people have out there. But unfortunately, it is what it is, and they've decided to make that call. So I feel terrible for anyone who is part of that, community. And hopefully they don't give up and they find something else to do here shortly, because there's some other good games out there, but I'm still waiting for that game. There's got to be something coming. I know that they're bringing out the Lord of the Rings online game, and there's some others that come out, but there's still nothing that has really impressed me and has really hit the nail. People call it the WoW beater. I don't necessarily think it needs to be that, but it just needs to be kind of like what you said, like a new generational Star Wars Galaxy.
That's exactly what I've been pitching for years. Just Galaxies 2.0. Make it a big universe, make it a sandbox, and go from there. That would be great. Honestly, I would like to see that. But to close it out, I just want to give a piece of advice to Wildstar players, Wildstar fans. I've gone through this before. When Knights of the Fallen Empire and SWTOR came out, the guild fell apart pretty quick because there was no more PvE content coming out. There was no more good content coming out. So I've been through this before. I've been through, seeing the game. It didn't shut down, but it basically shut down at that point for us. Get your friends' phone numbers. Get your friends' Facebook profiles. Get their
definitely
Discord. Get everything you can from the people you care about, because it is incredibly easy to lose touch with them. I lost touch with one of them for like 2 years, and just recently started talking to him again. Just randomly found him through a mutual friend on Facebook. So definitely the main thing that you should be focused on is just make sure you keep in contact with people. Make sure you... Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say make sure you support each other, because, like we said, it can be tough losing it.
Yep, absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. That was terrible of me to interrupt when I did. But I was just going to say, on, I believe it's November 28th, if you have a Wildstar account, please do log in for the last 3 or 4 of the game. Developers love to see that. They spend a lot of time and energy, and they put blood, sweat, and tears into this game. And so just honor them, show up for a few hours, say goodbye, because you won't regret it, and you never know. Sometimes the developers do some pretty cool stuff the last few hours.
Absolutely. Good advice. With that, we'll end it off here. MMOs are a very special thing, and you Wildstar players, keep your stick on the ice. We'll see you guys next time.
That's right.